conocer muy bien la psicología de sus personajes. Todos son muy destacados, pero hay la mayor, pues, intriga de saber de que bajo qué estándar o qué influencia ustedes se amoldaron a crear Party y qué fue el reto más importante de que sea un poco que logre alcanzar lo siniestro, lo turbio, lo bizarro, pero que se vea interesante.
Para ambos, ¿cierto?
Ujú.
Okay, this question is from Bot and a really great question. Before, and in fact, John told me that we don't want this to be an interview. No, let's talk like friends because we were talking about the movie when we watched it. And yeah, man, it's crazy about the psychology of the characters. I mean, every god like his own history, his own background. We can define, we can say, oh, this is only one aspect because no, it got so many layers. So from both Carlos and LC, how do you create this psychology and also to get this movie so sinister because you can never imagine. And in fact, I was telling like a little Joe in Colombia. In Colombia, we don't got party bus, but we got something called Chivas. Chivas are cars, like a party bus version, tropical Caribbean. That yeah, people jump out and dance, but you can never imagine that a movie happening in a party bus being so dark. So, from both of you, Carlos and LC, how do you create this psychology?
When it came to writing the character, it was about I always like the concept of being born in the wrong time. Whether it's even from romance point of view or from a battlefield point of view. And so this character in general is something I wanted to embody, and I felt somebody that would be best able to represent it would be someone like LC, who has the ability to carry such a calm demeanor, which is a very terrifying thing at the same time. And it's just about the subtext that's translated that really helps make the character become sinister, right? So when I was writing the characters, I wanted polar opposite, of the two brothers. One who is completely, absolutely, batshit crazy, and the other one who doesn't even have a spine, who gets taken advantage of. So he, buries his life and work, but because he just doesn't know how to communicate socially. Maybe a mild form of autism in a sense, very very mild. No communication skills and whatnot. But so when it came to that, that's kind of like where I wanted the premise to be. Someone who cared for his family and his brother so much that he's willing to go to this extent of things. And so I was like, how can an individual like this then learn such skill sets? And I'm just like, it would be funny if it was more like a day job for him, right? So he works as a creative interrogator, where he interrogates individuals for the government, and then he has asked for 2 weeks off so he can go to attend his brother's wedding. Just make it really nonchalant. So to me, that was like the dark element and the comedic element as well. And Elsie just was just like his tone, his look, and he also actually understood the psychology of the character as well. So I believe that that pairing was like perfect. And as far as Elsie bringing the character to life, that was mostly on him. He just understood it very well.
And then please tell us, how do you create this? Man, in fact, I was like, I cannot hate more this guy, but in the good way, like, but I really wanted to know more because, yes, got motivations. It's not only being bad for the sake of the badness, but tell us, man, how did you create this character that we're not hating, but loving at the same time?
Well, I mean, the character really starts from the script. And then, I read the script and I read it over and over again. And then I look at the piece as a whole and what the intention of the whole thing is. And I can talk to Carlos about that, before we shoot, and certainly when we're shooting. Based on that, I really think that an actor is, I've used this metaphor before, he's like an instrument in an orchestra. You have to play your notes to the best of your ability, and the director is basically the conductor. And so if everybody plays their notes well, then the whole thing comes off and it's a symphony, in this case a horror symphony, but whatever the case may be. So I'm always just looking for, how do I play my notes the best? And I just take what's written the motivations as I can see them, and then I can talk to Carlos about if I'm right or wrong, and then we just go from there. The character is written. He's a very, very sadistic individual, but he's also a very, very articulate individual, and it's probably I think it's the first time I've ever played someone who could so articulately tell you why he was doing this to you. You know what I mean? I mean, he plays his game, but outside of that game, he's basically going to tell you, well, listen, honestly, this is why I'm doing this and this and this and this, and this is what's going to happen to you if you don't play. So you make your own decisions, and the people make decisions, and then at the end of the day, no spoilers, but it's for a purpose, his own purpose. He has a reason behind it. And, it's really interesting to have a villain who has a reason behind what he's doing, as opposed to simply doing it because I can, which that's scary too. But the interesting thing I think about Jhon and Party Bus is he actually does have a reason. You have to watch all the way to the end of the movie to find out. But yeah, it was a great cast. I love working with Carlos. I loved working with everybody else in the cast, and I love the idea of, it was like what you were talking about the party bus. I'd never heard of that concept before. I thought, that's interesting. That's really interesting.
Because yes, LC, you were talking about like moving the pieces for like an orchestra, and yes, when you and I didn't watch the trailer. I was, oh yeah, party bus. Let me see, and, and I was surprised for all the things. But I see it, yes, like a very crazy symphony, because one, you never get bored because it got interesting parts. And I'm not only talking about the music, but the editing. In fact, you, Carlos, got some crazy ideas with the split screens and changes of lighting or colors. But yeah, man, how do you orchestrate this? Because it never gets boring. It doesn't start or surprising us, and it got so many layers. I was like, and in fact, I was on the scene. I feel so terrible if I loud here laughing in the fact of why I'm laughing at this. I don't suppose I got to laugh at this because it's so cruel. But tell us, man, how did you create this symphony?
Well, so I'm always a firm believer in when creating a film. I like it to contain different genre elements in it. We have our base that we'll follow. So the biggest challenge when it came to this is like one location, and how do we make it work in one location. So for me, I'm just like, if we can just create it like real time and eliminate a lot of what I consider the stutter in film. A lot of times they utilize that to transition from one scene to another, or try to carry it and pass the baton as much as possible. So lighting was a very important part in telling the story. So we had the colors that were going around, and then at one point we end up changing the color scheme and going more traditional horror with a more noir style, like darker lighting, but we'll still keeping it more modern, right? So those little psychological elements help keep the story going, keep the motion going, as far as the things that happen as well in the film. Like I had to make that decision when I was writing it. At what point was it going to be enough of the colors that just constantly keep changing, creating that party bus element and turning it into like, all right, the situation is not serious. And that's kind of like where we were going with that, because we're still figuring out the characters, we're still figuring out the scenario, and when we go to the part where it's mostly of the overhead lighting and a lot of the darker shadows and things like that, I want a lot more backlighting involved than the front lighting, right? So that's where the lights are more in the back and the characters are more in the darker shadows, kind of to help put more emphasis on the character's purpose and the type of characters that they are. But you'll notice at times where Jhon, LC's character, will have strong 3-to-1 ratio lighting, right? So it's just a really dark shadow on one side and lighting on one side, because that's another subtext into being able to tell and translate the character's intention and his motives. But when it becomes, so for example, when the officer shows up, there's very strong lighting in that, right? But that's to help translate, oh, he's unsure of how he's going to handle the situation. And he's literally not in the gray area; he's in the black and white area only. And that's his decision: is yes or no. Do I kill her or do I not? Right. And so that's where he has to make that decision. But then the lighting tends to change a little bit once he starts to control that conversation. And so that then opens it up a little bit more. So the lighting then starts to wrap more around the face. And you'll notice that when, he's at the back of the bus and they're having the conversation, like he has better grasp of what's going on. So that's like another way to translate that. So I believe that, people are smart enough, and especially the fans of horror are smart enough to pick up on those small subtexts that are not, necessarily written, but you can read in a book. So we have to find a way to translate that in film. And so those are little things that help carry the entertainment value throughout the entire project. It's just having those little bits of style of lighting that then can translate and help individuals, want to ask questions like, how was it able to carry it all the way through? Because it's a whole 90-minute ride from the beginning to end, and keeping it entertaining. And especially the fact that we don't have our first major kill until about 30 minutes into the film. It's like, how did you do that? And that's the idea, is to introduce conflict, characters, and kind of set it up as quickly as possible, and then get a little bit of teaser here and there before we go in, and then make the payoff, the 30 minutes into the film payoff, very well worth it with the first kill.
And before I let my friend John, LC, you're right. A great work for the cast, and kudos for the women. What an amazing roles they did. But I let my friend John.
Bueno,
John?
esta pregunta va para Daisy. Bueno, tu papel de Jhon es algo pues muy inesperado por toda la faceta, las transiciones que él hace, de todo el concepto, pues de todo el ambiente. Yo sí te quiero preguntar es sobre qué es lo más significativo que, bueno, sabemos de que en la película muestra puntos negativos de Jhon, pero ¿qué puedes rescatar de las partes positivas que de pronto sea que en la vida real algún suceso de esto pase? ¿Qué podemos aprender de pronto de esa mentalidad de Jhon como para poder sobrevivir?
Okay, this is an interesting question from LC. Yes, Sean never hide his, I mean, his bad reasons somehow, but he also got good reasons, maybe from him. What we can learn from Sean if we had to deal with these situations. Now, know if it's survival situations or situations that push us to the edge.
What could you learn from Jhon? That's a tough one. Well, you could definitely learn how to just follow your plan all the way through. I think that's the key to what Jhon is doing. You set on a course and you follow it all the way through. He's really, I mean, that's one of the things about playing a quote villain in a movie is, as an actor, for me anyway, I don't think of it as a villain, because I think anytime, very few people will think that they are, the bad guy in a situation. And usually the crazier the people are, or the more extreme their actions, the more they feel justified in what they're doing, So in other words, everyone is always the hero of their own story. So when you come into a movie like Party Bus, I don't really see Jhon as the villain, at least not while I'm acting. I mean, once the film is over and you watch it, you can be more objective as an audience member. That's a different thing. But playing it, you kind of play it like you're the hero of the story. And I think there is, to some degree, again, without giving away too much, one could actually easily think, yeah, Jhon is kind of the good guy in the story. I don't know that you have to twist your perceptions too hard. And that's really interesting, especially when you consider what all Jhon does, which is some of the more extreme stuff I've ever done in a movie, for sure. But so yeah, I mean, it's an interesting character that way. I don't think you have to twist this character as hard as you would have to some of the other people I've played to see him as, in a way, kind of the hero of the story.
Bueno, esta es como mi última pregunta para que pues, podamos también complementarla. Es sobre la idea del colorimetría, en el sentido de parte y voz. ¿Bajo qué influencia, bajo qué concepto visual pudo aprender pues de este filme, poder hacer lo posible? Porque me encantó la paleta pues de colores. increíble. Y no solo eso, ¿bajo qué proyección a futuro tiene sobre Party Boss? O sea, ¿piensan estar de pronto en, en las convenciones del terror? También porque eso va incluido al tema del terror, pero también, ¿cuál es el merchandising para Latinoamérica?
Okay, great question. Carlos, you tell us something about, yes, how do you elaborate it? John want to emphasize more now on the colors. You tell us something, but you can emphasize more. Go ahead. But also, what is the future for this movie? I mean, festivals, conventions, products. I don't know what happens after Party Boss ends.
So basically, the studio has already put the film into distribution, and it's just running its course. It's doing actually really well. The reports that were received, it's quite a bit of rentals and purchases on the product, and so that's made us extremely happy, and it's going to allow us to move forward with other styles of film. We want to create films that are similar to Party Bus, where we are utilizing reason for deaths, reasons for characters to die, and also help build that. And that's something that's very rarely seen, especially in the independent horror film community, right? So most of the times, a lot of individuals just like to recreate. Or pay homage to like earlier style slasher films where there is no reason for people to die just because. And like Elsie was saying, those are great, but we wanted to add something to the genre. We wanted to add more to that, and so so far from what we're seeing, the success of Party Bus will allow us to open up other avenues of creating more what we call black humor, right? Black comedy. It's you find yourself laughing at some of the horrific deaths in there, and you're like, why am I laughing? But that's the thing, you can relate to it on a level, whether it's over the top extreme and it's just not taking itself too serious, because that's also the concept. There are directors out there that will do films that are absolutely taken seriously, and they're fantastic when they're done right. Otherwise, it can just come off a little bit on the more of an embarrassment for the filmmaker at times, right? But that's something that we wanted to focus on, was creating like an intelligent gore style filmmaking, where it has these comedic elements, it has some of these dramatic elements, but it's not taking itself too seriously, right? So it's a simple setup, and eliminating a lot of the pathways where people can kind of like, oh, that's a loophole, as much as we possibly can, and creating these films that also have some underlining psychological implications into it, right? So color and lighting, all those things are very important in being part of telling the story, instead of just the story and the actors alone. It's all from beginning to end, and it's also an experimental thing that we're doing, and seeing how the audience responds to it. Some of the films that were that inspired it was like You're Next and Ready or Not and things like that, because those films all had purpose. The characters have purpose and things like that. But we wanted to give more depth into each character dying. That's where it's the first film I saw LC in. I was just like, oh, this guy, he's just like, he plays this crazy psycho guy, and then you meet him in person, he's just completely different. Just a really nice guy, and it's just like being able to be inspired by those kind of films helps us out a lot in deciding what we're going to do with this style of filmmaking.
And I'm telling my friend that this is the moment, because if you talk about Joe Arnés, I will tell John, este es el momento de preguntar de Joe Arnés. Ay, Carlos lo mencionó. Y no sé si contarles que aquí estuvo, pues, la persona de esa secuela, de esa película, tú sabes cuál, tú dirás.
Sí,
Queda
de
tus manos,
hecho,
John.
de hecho, bueno, aparte de que cómo definen Party Boss en una palabra, pues no sé, preguntarle a les hijo de que si hay alguna segunda parte, no sé, tengo la expectativa algún día que sí. ¿Y
La
Party
Rosita.
Boss 2 hay?
Okay. We will, the plans are going to end this interview, but I'm glad that no. Yes, the final question is, both of you define Party Boss in one word, but thank you, Carlos, to mention it, because yes, we need to talk about URNS. In fact, we were talking about URNS before this interview started. And see, I don't know there are plans, or somebody tell us that maybe will be a sequel, because we know that you appear also in another amazing saga that is VHS. In fact, we got in the channel the amazing Hannah Firman from the first one, but there are rumors. And Carlos, there are rumors. I know you tell us that you want to create more movies like this, or there are rumors for maybe a Party Boss too. So, rumors from sequels from those amazing movies, and define Party Boss in one word. Go ahead.
Party Bus in one word. Go ahead, Elsie. I'd like to hear what you have to say.
Well, in one word, I would just say sadistic. Yeah, I would say Party Bus is sadistic. Now, I think I understood the question. Were you asking if there's going to be a sequel to You're Next or VHS 2?
No, you are next. And in fact, like we were talking about, you can say the same thing. It will be great. Do you imagine the impact of that movie? I know that that movie was huge on Japan, but in Latin America, Carlos. In fact, we were. I was talking with some friends. Oh, we're going to interview LC from Journess. Oh, that's great. I mean, I'm still people that I even know in my life watch that movie. So I don't know. Let's see what are your impressions with people from around the world, like here, Colombia, and a small city from Colombia, by the way. We are not in Bogota. We are in Cucuta. He's in the border with Venezuela. What are your impressions? What they tell you? Oh, I saw you Ernest and I love it.
Oh, I think it's great whenever anybody tells me they loved You're Next. And it's wild to me when I hear how many different cultures around the world, like, I was saying the Japanese culture really embraced You're Next, like huge over there, as you were saying in Latin America as well. And in England, other countries like that, it blows my mind. I mean, when we made that movie, we never thought. Actually, the director of that movie, Adam Wingard, I've known since we were both about 19 years old. And we did a lot of movies together, short films and feature-length films. And there was a moment on Your Next when I was standing next to Adam and we were watching this a stunt woman jump out of a 2-story window into a giant airbag. And I mentioned to him, I said, did you ever think we would still be standing here all these years later, like on a set watching a stunt woman jump out of a window into an airbag? And he was like, well, I kind of hoped we would, But in terms of like the way people have embraced it and loved the movie, never knew it would happen. I don't know if there'll ever be a Your Next 2. I'm open to the idea of it. I would certainly love to play that character again. I would say probably they won't do it. But you never know. You never know.
And Carlos defined Party Boss in one word. And like I was talking to LC, because LC told me that he wants to be invited to convention or something. Man, I don't promise you anything, but it will be great when I continue working on El Grito, like send you an invitation or something, because it will be great that this movie gets submitted and hopefully gets selected, because that's the reason why movie festivals exist. But man, define Party Boss in one word, and there will be like a sequel, prequel, I don't know.
Well, for me, Party Bus is fun. It's just a lot of fun overall. It's supposed to feel like you're on a bus having a fun time, like a fly on the wall in a sense. As far as a sequel or prequel, I would like to move forward with something like that. There's a lot of options that we can go with when it comes to telling the full story in the film. Jhon is one of the more interesting characters in there, and that's a story that does need to be still told, I believe. That's also, I think, the one that people would love to follow as far as that goes. But that right now isn't nothing is planned or in the works for a sequel. But it's something we could possibly talk about following year or so, and possibly making it a reality, showing the extent of Jhon's story.
That would be a lot of fun. I would definitely be down for that. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah. We would definitely need a lot larger budget to tell his story, because he's Guantanamo Bay, he goes to prison, he does a lot of things. and to really sell that ideology. But I do believe that it is something that could be more on the action element, instead of the black comedy. Could be more on the action side of things, because that's more of his lifestyle. He's a very intelligent guy, and it's kind of like on the level of like Hannibal Lecter, on the kind of sadistic mentality he has, except he doesn't have a PhD.
And it will be like the more improbable action. I mean, we see like the action guys are the men with big muscles, and this is more like intelligent action. Oh man! And by the way, we want to congratulate you. We were talking before. Man, if you say that you need a big budget, I can imagine you working with a big budget, because you really made the budget to. I mean, this movie looks expensive, and we know that because you make it look great, man. So kudos, they send you more budget to keep creating. And LC, we need to tell you, if you can say a big hi to Adam, go ahead from the channel, because we really admire his work. In fact, we got Hannah Firman from VHS. So let's say he has fans here in Colombia. John, vas a mostrar el tráiler, ¿no? ¿O hacemos los saludos?
No, los saludos
Okay.
y las redes.
Before we show the trailer to when people see it, both of you, Carlos and LC, say your social media so people can follow you. Please send a big hi to the channel. You can say Jhon Jatenjor's interview, or Jhon's channel, or Colombia, but the camera is from both of you. Social medias, and a big hi to the channel of Colombia, wherever you want.
Well, you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram, LC Holt. Either one of those. Those are the two platforms that I'm a part of to speak of. And I just want to say thank you all, and Colombia, for checking out Party Bus. And I'm really looking forward to meeting you all when we get to come down there with Party Bus, or one of the other films we do in the future. Who knows?
Yes. Hey, so you can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook, and you can also find me on Twitter. Instagram will be CF Berber, or C Berber. You can also find me on YouTube. There's a lot of previous work that I have and other upcoming projects. And you can also check out my website, which is berberproductions.com. So thank you very much, Colombia, for having us. It was a pleasure. And thank you very much for supporting the film. We're looking to produce more great films that you guys can also enjoy.
And Carlos and LC, John, write down a phrase. You can say it. It's like a hi to the channel. So please, that phrase.
Greetings, Jhon Channels Interviews and Colombia. LC Holt here.
Greetings, Jhon Channels Interviews in Colombia. Carlos here.
Bravo. No, Lacey, Carlos, gracias por esta maravillosa oportunidad. Espero lo hayan disfrutado y bienvenidos siempre.
Thanks for this great opportunity. I hope you enjoy it. And yes, you're always welcome here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was a lot of fun.
Listo, no.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, it's an honor.
Good
You're
weekend.
always-
Good
Good
night.
weekend. Yes, have a good weekend. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. And Merry Christmas before
Happy
this.
Christmas. Happy New
Thank
Year.
Same
Bye
to
bye.
you.
Bye bye.